Forget the history books. Forget the documentaries. The weapons that got the headlines, the ones on the posters and in the propaganda reels, those were the ones governments wanted you to see. But behind every officially approved rifle and every celebrated design was a different story. A shadow arsenal of inventions built in secret, tested behind locked doors, and quietly buried when the fighting was over. Some were hidden because they failed, others because they worked too well. Today we are counting down 10 World War II weapons they never wanted you to see. Number 10, the sticky bomb, Mark II, the weapon Britain prayed you would never ask about. In 1940, Britain was staring down a German invasion with almost nothing to stop it. Engineers were under pressure to deliver anything that could give a foot soldier a chance against German armor. What they came up with was a glass sphere packed with nitroglycerin and coated in powerful adhesive, designed to be slapped against a tank and detonated. On paper, it sounded bold. In practice, it was a catastrophe. The adhesive stuck to gloves, walls, uniforms, and the hands of the men trying to throw it. One officer wrote that the user must display exceptional enthusiasm to survive deployment. Training accidents were quietly filed away. Units that received them often refused to use them at all. What officials hated most was what the sticky bomb represented, not ingenuity, but desperation. It was never recalled. It was simply allowed to fade, pushed out of official history wherever possible, and swallowed by the embarrassment of early war Britain. Number 9, the MP-3008, Germany's last-ditch submachine gun they barely documented. By late 1944, Germany's arms industry was collapsing. Factories were being bombed, steel was scarce, and skilled machinists were dead or fighting. The Wehrmacht still needed weapons. So, what came out of that crisis was the MP-3008, a crude copy of the British Sten gun, assembled in scattered workshops across a crumbling Reich. No precision engineering, no two guns that looked the same. Some were barely safe to fire. What made it worse from a propaganda standpoint was that Germany was copying a British weapon. The same rough-welded submachine gun that British officers had once called an embarrassment was now being reverse-engineered by the nation that prided itself on military precision. Documentation is thin, precisely because the regime never wanted to highlight what its existence revealed. It was never classified. It was simply left to dissolve into the fog of Germany's final collapse. Number 8. The Volkssturmgewehr, the rifle Germany built in the shadows. By 1945, Germany was not just losing the war, it was unraveling. Hitler ordered the creation of the Volkssturm, a civilian militia of old men and teenagers, but there were not enough weapons to arm them. So, the regime created the Volkssturmgewehr, a rough rifle stamped and welded together in whatever workshops still had power. No unified design, no quality control worth the name. Some fired from open bolts, some from closed bolts. Some had functioning sights, others barely had stocks. The goal was never reliability. The goal was numbers. What Germany could not afford to let its own population see was the truth these rifles represented, the complete collapse of a once world-class arms industry. Surviving examples vary so dramatically from one another that collectors still cannot determine which workshop built them. Each one is an uneven reminder of a nation coming apart, one riveted joint at a time. Number 7, the Owen submachine gun, the gun the brass tried to bury. In 1939, a 23-year-old Australian named Evelyn Owen walked into a military office with a prototype submachine gun he had built himself. Simple, reliable, and designed to keep working in dirt and mud. Exactly what a jungle fighting army would need. But the people in charge did not want it. Owen had no credentials, no connections, and his design threatened to embarrass officers who had already committed to foreign weapons. So, they dismissed it without proper trials. It should have died there. But a small engineering firm saw the potential and pushed for real tests. When the trials happened, the Owen ran perfectly in conditions that jammed every competing design. The embarrassment that leadership had been trying to avoid arrived from the opposite direction. They had suppressed a superior weapon built by an unknown civilian, and nobody wanted that on the record. Production began quietly, without fanfare, and soldiers in New Guinea discovered the truth themselves. The Owen was one of the most dependable submachine guns of the entire war. Number 6. The Type 5 rifle, Japan's secret attempt to copy the Garand. By the final years of the war, Japan had accepted a difficult truth. American infantry had a firepower advantage that Japanese rifles could not match. Behind closed doors, Japanese engineers began studying captured M1 Garands and quietly developing a copy. What emerged was the Type 5 rifle, a semi-automatic design that borrowed the Garand's clip system and gas mechanism. But this was never a project Japan wanted visible. Admitting that engineers were reverse engineering American rifles and struggling to produce them in meaningful numbers was unthinkable for a military that had spent the war projecting strength. The program moved forward in semi-secret facilities with almost no documentation. When the war ended, most examples were destroyed or abandoned. Only a handful survived. Not a triumph of engineering, a testament to desperation, carried out in secrecy because the alternative was admitting how badly the balance of the war had shifted. Number 5. The Liberator FP45, the $2 pistol that was never supposed to be remembered. The FP45 Liberator barely qualified as a firearm, a single-shot pistol stamped from sheet metal, produced by the millions for roughly $2 each. No serial numbers, no markings, almost no moving parts. Anyone who picked one up understood immediately it was crude and disposable. That was precisely the intention. The Liberator was not built for frontline soldiers. It was a covert weapon, designed to be dropped by the hundreds of thousands into occupied Europe, letting partisans kill a German soldier at close range and take his real weapon. The Liberator was not the end goal. It was the first step towards something better. Production at the Guide Lamp division of General Motors was conducted under tight security. Workers were told almost nothing. After the war, the program was too politically delicate to showcase and too unconventional to explain. Most were destroyed or dumped at sea. Today's surviving FP45s are rare reminders of a weapon built specifically to be forgotten. Number 4. The Krumlauf, Germany's secret experiment in shooting around corners. Of all the strange projects that came out of German weapons development, the Krumlauf stands alone for sheer audacity. Engineers had identified a real problem. In urban combat, soldiers were dying as they exposed themselves around corners. The Krumlauf was a curved barrel attachment for the STG-44, designed to redirect bullets around obstacles without the soldier ever showing himself. The idea worked for about 30 rounds. Then pressure spikes cracked the barrels, bullets shattered inside the curve, and the attachment tore itself apart. Reports from testing were kept tightly controlled, not because the weapon worked brilliantly, but because even a failed curved barrel experiment revealed how specifically German engineers were thinking. Surviving documentation is sparse, most of it recovered by Allied intelligence after the war. The few Krumlauf barrels that exist today are museum pieces, twisted proof of an experiment that pushed against the laws of physics and lost. Number 3. The MKB-42, the rifle Hitler never knew he had authorized. Before the STG-44 changed infantry warfare forever, the design had to survive its own creator's opposition. In 1942, Hitler personally prohibited new rifle development, but engineers at Hanel and Walter were not prepared to stop. So, they lied about what they were building. The MKB-42 prototype was secretly relabeled as a machine pistol to slip past Hitler's restrictions. Reports were rewritten. Early tests were conducted with only a handful of officers aware of what the program was actually trying to achieve. When battlefield results proved the design's value, Hitler was presented with outcomes he could not dismiss, and he insisted on renaming it, which led directly to the Sturmgewehr designation. Most MKB-42 prototypes vanished into testing facilities or the chaos of the war's final months. The full story only emerged from captured documents after the war. It was not just the birth of the assault rifle. It was a weapon born in defiance, hidden from its own government until it was too valuable to deny. Number 2. The Lisle Carbine, the silent rifle Britain locked away. From the outside, it resembled a standard bolt-action carbine, but the moment you pulled the trigger, you understood nothing about it was standard. The Lisle was one of the quietest firearms ever built. So quiet, the sound of the bolt cycling was often louder than the shot itself. An integral suppressor running nearly the full length of the barrel, combined with a subsonic cartridge, made it almost completely silent at close range. That made it the ideal tool for the special operations executive, and it made everything surrounding its use incredibly sensitive. Missions that used it were classified, reports were restricted, only a small number were ever made, sent to commando units and operatives deep inside occupied territory. Many were carried into the field and never came back. For decades, almost everything about the Lisle stayed locked behind classified files. A ghost weapon built for silence and kept in silence long after the fighting stopped. Number 1, the Welrod, the quietest killer they tried to erase from the record. Of every weapon built during World War II, none were designed to be more invisible than this. It did not look like a pistol. It did not sound like one. It carried no serial numbers, no markings, nothing that could identify it or link it to Britain. To anyone who found it, it was simply a metal tube. The Welrod was developed in secrecy by the Special Operations Executive for one purpose: silent elimination at point-blank range. Its suppressor was so effective that at arm's length, the shot was barely a click. The bolt cycling made more noise than the round leaving the barrel. Operatives caught with one could reveal nothing under interrogation. There was nothing to trace. It was issued for missions that were never formally documented and used in operations that appeared in no official reports. After the war, files stayed restricted. Surviving pistols were locked away. The weapon resurfaced in later conflicts, used by special forces who valued absolute silence. Some governments refused to acknowledge using it at all. Today, the Welrod is more legend than firearm. A ghost weapon that left no sound, no trace, and almost no documentation. A pistol built not to frighten enemies, but to make them disappear. Those were 10 World War II weapons they never wanted you to see. Each one tells a different version of the same story. The war the public was shown and the war that was actually fought were never quite the same. If that is the history you want, the real version without the filters, subscribe. There is more coming, and you will not want to miss what we uncover next.